Rust is a game where two naked rocks beat men. Well, I guess it's a little bit more complicated than that. Rust is a sandbox, first-person shooter game, but what does it actually feel like to play Rust? And to answer that question, it's like playing Dark Souls, but only dying. It also includes parts of Minecraft, like the hunger bar for example, which isn't really useful unless it's empty. At that point, you gotta take care of it. And if you're one of the many people that watch YouTube videos on a daily basis, you might think it's a story-based game like Resident Evil where you go through and just get a bunch of cool guns and start killing people. But the thing is, Rust YouTube wasn't always like this. To truly understand how this all started, we have to go back to the beginning. The place where everything started.
Our story started where and how everyone in Rust begins.
Welcome to a Rust.
This is what it means to play Rust. If you're sitting at Applebee's eating mac and cheese and just waiting to get home while watching this, you'd probably think that this is what Rust actually is. The problem with your perspective is you're a young, ignorant, and probably overall happy person because honestly, it only goes down from here. Now, before we get too far, I do want to explain the main premise of Rust, and that is of course dependent on the player because it is a sandbox survival. But generally, most people have one certain way of playing, and that's generally to grind out resources, build a base that they feel secure enough in, and then they'll go out until they can get their hands on a gun, because that's the most important part of the cliff notes. Now, once you have a gun in this game, some people consider this game completed, but many others will try to take whatever abundant resources they have and try to steal other players' loot by forcefully raiding their cozy home. Now, usually it doesn't matter how small the base is because any base can have an absurd amount of loot, so most players go for whatever they can find. Now, before you try to get into Rust, there is a couple meta playstyles that you'll encounter and need to choose from. And I do have to say, most of them are really good options except for playing as a solo. Now, for those who play solo, Rust is a horror game, and I don't care how many Willjum videos you've seen and want to tell me otherwise, just remember, I know what I'm talking about. And every single time I play Rust, I feel like one of those cats that jumps on tinfoil. That's me, that right there, that's me. The only problem is that explaining the feeling of playing solo is difficult, and it doesn't do it enough justice. I recently found an old clip of me playing as a solo, so I really wanted to show you what it's really like to be a solo player. Most people that play Rust don't actually enjoy the game, they're just kind of dedicated to it. If you haven't already, lock your door, because this is what door campers love. And a door camper is very simple. It's just someone who camps at doors. I don't know what else you want. Now, people hate door campers for obvious reasons, but getting free loot is still really nice, and that's why people keep doing it. So if you're looking to play Rust and you want to get some loot quickly without actually having to do work, being a door camper is a good option. But just remember that becoming a door camper also means that you're more likely to become door camp. And that's where this plan really falls off. If you want to become part of the Rust community, just search up Rust on Reddit and start programming. The next up on our list is of course the Duo. This is the most common build in Rust, and this is for good reason too, because you get to experience all of the fun of being terrified while still having a backup plan. Now, personally, I've had a lot of fun playing as a duo before, but I don't do it anymore just because I don't like the thought of someone holding me back. A pro is not someone you're going to experience as a newcomer on Rust. It's also locked out as a primary class to pick just because it's out of your skill gap. Now, the typical spawn location of a pro is on the beach side of a small or large oil rig. These guys don't really venture off too far away from these locations just because this is the place to get the loot. Now, the final option to pick as a class is going to be, of course, the clan. And even though you can pick the clan option, you're not going to be starting off as the head honcho. You're going to be a side character that's just farming all day, and you're not really going to learn how to play the game. At least, not its intended way of playing. So, I see you've picked the duo class, and mostly because you don't have a third friend, and that's okay. Because now we're going to talk about all of the locations that you're going to encounter as a newcomer to Rust. There's some areas you're going to want to avoid, but there's also other areas where there's going to be a lot of loot, and that's where you really want to focus on. You see this green area right here? This is kind of the beach spawn. This is tier 1. It's also known as Elo Hell. You want to avoid this place just because you're never really gonna get out of it. Now, there's also a snow biome and a desert biome. These are both really good options to build at, but you really need to know how to survive in these areas, and that's what I'm hoping to not prepare you for. First of all, the desert has no rocks, no trees, no resources for you to actually survive in. It's just a lot of scrapping. And then there's the snow biome. This place kind of sucks because you can't walk around naked. Well, I guess you can walk around naked during the day, so that's a pretty good benefit. First of all, there's the high risk, high reward locations. These are the places you're going to want to visit to get actual loot, but you have to remember there's always a higher risk of dying. Next up is the low risk, low reward. These are pretty common. You're not going to get much loot, but you can scrap, and it's a good option to scrap. Next up, if you're living in the tier 1 location for some reason, then these are the high risk, low reward locations. Everywhere here is everything you want to avoid unless you just want to have fun. And finally, we have the low risk but also very high reward locations. These places are known to have the best loot without having any of the risk. And of course, our last topic is going to be about guns. Guns in Rust are very common in Battleground servers. Other than that, you're not getting one. Oh, frick. Who the frick is killing me from side?